And we're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We're talking with Melody, Megan, and Heather today about organ donations. And Melody, you are a twice kidney recipient.
I am. It's all true.
Yes. Yep. That's amazing.
Yes, it is.
And I don't know, how does it feel to sit here with the people that have, well, I mean, in your case, Heather, you donated your son's organs on his behalf because there wasn't anything signed, or was there?
Well, he had signed his donor card, his license.
They still ask you
when he got his license, because 10 years ago, when the crash happened, there was no online registry yet. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know, but it was my daughter who said, oh, yes, absolutely. We talked about it. And she had not signed hers. And he said, oh, only losers don't sign their organ donor card.
Spoken only like a brother.
I agree. And, anyway, so it was because of Emily saying that, that really reassured me, yes, this was something he believed in. And if I had not known that, I might have said no. I mean, you're in such a state of shock.
It's the worst moment of your life.
Grief. As a mother, you know, you're seeing your son on life support. You're being told there's no hope. He's brain dead, and it's so sudden because it was just a car crash that all of a sudden happened. I raised him to the age of 22, and you think, now I'm home free. I'm home free. I got him to this stage, to this stage, to this stage. He was such an incredible young man, and this is the worst nightmare of any parent to see your child in this position. Mm-hmm. But at least he got to die a hero, saving lives. And people are alive because he donated, and he lives on in those people who have his organs.
Yeah.
And so that's very important to me. I have attended the transplant games, 4 Canadian transplant games. I started in 2012 in Moncton, went to Calgary in 2014. It was in Toronto in 2016. I was on the planning committee, and this past summer, 2018, in Vancouver. And it's like the Olympics for people who've had organ transplants. And that really solidified in my mind how important this is. I saw little tiny children competing in these sports activities who would not be alive. Mm-hmm. And they were just so much enjoying their lives, appreciating their lives, and their parents still had their children now. Mm-hmm. And then I saw people who were, you know, in their 70s who had had organs for over 20 years who would not be alive. And, you know,
it's inspiring.
Very inspiring. And
it's inspiring. And maybe we should have these things televised so that other people can see this is what your donation, should you ever be in a position to donate, this is what you can be responsible for.
Yes. And there's this whole community. These people get together every 2 years in Canada. The in-between years, they have the World Games. They're going to be in England this summer, actually, at Newcastle. And, you know, it's a community. It's almost like a Christmas reunion. Like all these family members get together.
Melody's saying it is.
They've all shared this, this experience of getting an organ, and the other people who are there, they all get it. They all know what it's like to have to wait for an organ, think that you might die waiting for this organ, and then go on to appreciate this gift of life. And they're trying also to see that other people will get their second chance at life also by being very involved in these kinds of events. Mm-hmm. So I'm always invited as a donor family member to be there. They have a donor march. They have all kinds of things to appreciate the donors, because without a donor, there would be no recipients of these organs. And
people die every year on the waiting list, waiting every day, waiting for organs. It's not something where, you know, well, there's really not a need. There's a huge need. There's a huge need.
And in Ontario, they've always kept the waiting list at about 1,500. I think today it's 1,600 something. Yes. Mm-hmm. But that's really an artificial number. Yes. They just try to keep it a manageable amount. There are way more people that need organs, and as you said, people die waiting on that list every day.
Yes. Yeah.
So what a horrible thing.
When there are more people who could be donors. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's unfortunate to think of the the horrible incidences and accidents, but if you could do one good thing out of that horrible situation, wouldn't you want to? You know, you can't ask the person who's been in the accident. So it's something that you have to talk about now. I remember about a year ago we had a gentleman on who I think you've met before, Melody. He runs a funeral home.
Yes,
and he's part of Shannon's story group. And he sat here and he said, you know, it's an interesting thing that the Europeans are always wondering why we have the commercials for, you know, planning your funeral and things like this. And he says, you know, because in Europe that doesn't happen. So the Europeans always think we're a little weird over here. But he says people will spend time talking, money, all kinds of research into their insurance policy in case their house burns down, in case they get robbed, in case there's a flood, in case there's a hurricane. And they don't want to talk about or spend any money worrying about or discussing the inevitability that is a for sure thing.
It's
will come a day when you won't be here.
Do not want to think about or talk about their mortality or the mortality of their loved ones. It's fear. It's fear. And I get that. But here's the news flash, folks. Everybody's going to the same place. When we're done, we're done.
Yeah.
And you truly can't take your organs with you. So why not give someone else the opportunity to carry on living? When your time is done, you don't really have a lot of choice about it. I remember speaking to a man at a Dragon Boat Festival, and he wanted to know who we were, and we do tend to make a lot of noise, but that's because we love life so much. And so he said, you know, what are you guys all about? So I said, you know, we're team transplant and organ donors. And so I said, have you signed your card? And this again back, not quite when the dinosaurs were around, but not that far off. And he said, oh, no, I don't believe in that. I went, okay, fair. If someone you love needs a transplant, you know, your wife, your child, your parent, your whatever, oh, well, that's different. I'm like, wait a minute. You're not prepared, just in case something happens to you, to put your name down as a potential donor, but yet you would jump the queue to get an organ. And he just walked away. He couldn't deal with it. He just could not deal with it. And that's unfortunate. And I think that's why we need to have more discussions like this, that people get educated about how the process works. And I mean, Megan donating 2 organs and being a perfectly healthy and vibrant individual. That's living donors. That's fantastic. And if you don't want to do that, that's okay. Like that's your choice. But again, when your time is up, let other people have a chance.
That's right.
Because they don't have a chance otherwise. They are going to die. And that's not right.
And you don't have to stand up and be an advocate, and you don't have to announce it from the rooftops and wear a shirt or anything. You can, on your own, in a very personal way, register to be a donor. Make sure you do tell 1 or 2 people so that if something does happen, they're aware of your wishes. But you don't have to shout it from the rooftops. You don't all of a sudden become a crusader and go stomping around the world. You can just be a donor.
We were talking on the break, though, how important education is around the topic and how different it is. So 20 years ago when I was in school, you didn't dare speak about this topic. It was very
taboo. It would never even come up.
And people would shut it right down. I would say, my mom's on the transplant list. Ooh. And they would literally run away.
And again, it has to do with death.
Right.
Somebody's got to die.
That's
and
right.
we're not talking about
That's
that.
right. But in today's age, I volunteer with an organization, the Character Community Organization of York Region, and we do youth social justice days. And we're actually, one of our workshops in those days, Jay and I both present, one as a recipient and one as a donor, on organ donation to grades 6, 7, and 8 children. And just to see how far we've come, that we're now able and allowed to get into schools and to talk about something that isn't necessarily always the happiest, brightest, cheerful topic, but really, really, really gets the younger ones thinking, and they can see that I'm perfectly healthy. They can see how well Jay has done for the last 18 years. And then they take that home to their friends and their families. And I have had families email me after those workshops saying, thank you. Like, thank you for bringing this message out. Thank you for introducing it to them in, a pleasant way, as pleasant as you can. So that we can then further that discussion. And it's amazing once we get started in those workshops, about 10 minutes in, I always ask, have any of you ever had anything to do with transplantation or know anyone that's ever received an organ? And, then these little hands creep up and they say, well, actually, my dad gave my uncle a kidney last year, or my next door neighbor was in sick kids for a year and then got a heart. And so it's incredible that now they're free to speak about that and that it's accepted. And,
and they're a lot smarter than
100%.
you would give them credit for.
That's
and
right.
I think in many ways children somehow handle this information and this kind of thing differently than an adult does.
That's right.
Whether they're too young to know all of the ramifications of it, or whether they just have an innate understanding of, if one life ends, another can begin. And I mean, you just said on all the horrible things about this discussion. There's so many good things about this discussion.
Oh, yes.
I mean, Heather, you could talk to that more than anyone here at the table, I think, because you've suffered such a loss. But you wouldn't be going to those transplant games if it didn't give you some sort of joy to see those kids and to feel that your son lives on in the most profound of ways.
Yes. And I have, because of this, if I had just walked out of that hospital, he had passed away, he had not donated his organs, I wouldn't have known the life that I would have missed. This has taken me on such an amazing journey. It's taken me across my country, Canada, to these games. I've met people from across the country who are so inspiring to me. I just respect them so much. And I actually, tomorrow night is the Ashley's Angels. Ashley was a little girl who received part of a liver from her aunt, and her mother, Sherry Logan, has this Ashley's Angels every year, and they've raised about $1.5 million for children transplant research at Sick Kids Hospital. And 2 years ago, they wanted a donor group to walk on the Ashley's Catwalk. So I walked with Nancy Deutsch, whose son Ryan had donated. He was like 9 years old. He would be 32 now, the same age as my son Jonathan would be 32. And we walked together, and it was an incredible experience to walk with the recipients of organs. And I'm going tomorrow night to the Ashley's Angels event again down at the Steam Whistle Brewery downtown Toronto. And my family was chosen to be on the Train for Heroes. The Rocky Mountaineer invited a bunch of families, some from Canada, some from the US, from the UK, from Australia. And unfortunately, I missed the train. I happened to have already booked a trip to France with my sister, but I joined up with the whole group. My husband and daughter and her now husband were on the train, and I joined up with them at Lake Louise, and I met people who they had brought together the heart recipient with the parents of the heart donor, so that those heart donor parents got to hear their son's heartbeat in another young man's chest. And I met this darling little girl, Addison, from Vancouver, who got a heart transplant as a very, very young baby. And she just got a children's wish to meet, I forget the name of the astronaut, and we all became Facebook friends, so I see what's happening in their lives. I've since met up with them on my travels. When I went to England, I met up with the mother whose son received the heart, and I met up with Lynn Holt, who coordinated all of the transplants for the UK, and she's now running the transplant games in the UK. She's on the committee. And so I've met these amazing people and traveled the world in ways that would not have happened. I wouldn't have realized I was missing out on on this, and it just has added such a purpose to my life. So Jonathan saved the lives of at least 4 men, but he also saved my life by giving me a purpose through his gift. He gave me a gift too. So it's been a phenomenal journey.
I actually, a year almost to the date, got a tattoo to kind of, you know, always have something on me to remember our day. And you speaking of purpose, that's exactly what my tattoo says. So it says, I gave her life, but she gave me purpose. And I truly do believe that. You know, you, like I said before, you just wake up every day and you just think, wow, you know, like, look at what happened and look at how well they're doing. And, you know, and to take something that had been so difficult as a child, watching my mother die, you know, almost die several times, and turning it into something so positive. And I think that this cause is one of those causes where you can actually do that. You can turn something so tragic into such a miracle and into such a happy circumstance, right? And I think that's really remarkable, because in a lot of ways other causes can't do that for different reasons, but this one, organ donation, certainly can. So
yes,
I think
it's such a ripple effect, because you're not just saving the life of the person that gets the transplant, but all that person's family and friends.
That's right.
Can be happy.
That's right.
For that person.
That's
and,
right.
You know, what I wouldn't have given to have extra years with my son, and they are now getting extra years with their loved ones.
Right. That's right.
There was one fellow at the games in Calgary, and he wore a pad of paper around his neck, and it was like 7,381. And the next day, 7,382. And I went up to him. His name is Denny Richardson. I said, what are these numbers? That's how many days I've had my heart.
Right.
And it was like 22 years. Now it's probably 26 years. And he's still going strong.
That's right.
And he said he was originally given a 5-year warranty on that heart. When he got it, that's what the doctors thought. It would only last 5 years. Well, I'll take 5 years.
Right.
I would have taken 5 extra years with Jonathan.
Exactly.
And to have...
That's right.
Yeah,
and we always make it a huge celebration every year too. So we still, you know, Mom is very spoiled in that she has her actual birthday and then she has her 2 liver transplant anniversaries. So we celebrate all 3. And now I'm able to do that with my kidney recipient, and I'll be able to do it with the baby next year too. But we always make a point of celebrating exactly all the days we've had with them, all the memories we've had with them. But we also make a point of always saying a prayer and thanking the donors as well, because just like you said, without them, we wouldn't have been able to experience any of this with Mom, right? So it's so important to always be thankful, and they're always in our prayers and always in our thoughts, right? So
yeah, and it is amazing. You know, you just meet people in the world, and I should have my green ribbon on, but we'll wear our green ribbons out and about in the world, and people ask us about it. And and then we'll hear their story of somebody that they know that had a transplant or is waiting for a transplant. It's touching so many people.
It is. And we're always, that's why I'm wearing my butterfly scarf today. So as you know, butterflies are a symbol of organ donation and new life, and that's what we do. So our whole family is also about the green ribbons. I have one on my car right now, but also about the butterflies. And they'll always ask, like, why do you guys, wear so much butterfly swag? And what, and so then it's just one of those education moments as well, right? And it was really neat when I found out that the baby and I were a match. I went and bought her all these butterfly outfits and headbands, and so the mom was opening them up, and she's like, well, thank you so much, but what is really the theme here? Like, she wasn't really understanding. And so there was that education moment again, and then my mom was able to go down and meet the baby yesterday, which was such a remarkable moment for me to sit back and just cry watching. But she had one of her little butterfly shirts on, and my mom just kind of looked at me and winked, and now, that will carry on as well, right? So she'll be able, when she goes to kindergarten one day, to wear a butterfly headband or a green ribbon, and then tell all her friends and her teachers, right? So, yeah. Wow. It's always important.
You guys are so remarkable. I mean, to listen to these stories, I hope that the listeners today are getting as much out of this as I am. And I know Patty just keeps nodding her head. She looks like a bobble in the back of a window in the car. She's just nodding and nodding and nodding. And as a critical care nurse, Patty, you're around this stuff all the time, and it still affects you so profoundly to hear these stories.
It really does. And I think part of it is, you've been part of it in different ways, but when you look at healthcare workers and our part in it, We look at the people. We don't necessarily see, we don't see the donors, but we see the recipients. We see the donors' families, and we also see, what you're going through and the decisions that have to be made and the support that is required from our perspective. When you're looking at healthcare workers who are doing this, that's something I'm a strong advocate of as well. We're very proactive in it. And having been involved, the Trillium Gift of Life, as you talk about the dark ages, it used to be that nurses were trained to talk to families about it. And they realized that, you need an expertise in talking to families. And Trillium Gift of Life staff are the ones that are talking directly to these families. And there's a good reason for that. We're not directly, it's a different person speaking to them objectively. Yeah. So that some of those old thoughts about people wanting to, stop people's lives sooner is not the case. And they have the expertise and know the process even better than we do. We help along with the process, but they understand the true process and all that around it. And the people who come and help, you talk about the investigation, you were talking about the tests and so on. It is incredible the amount of testing that goes on, as you say, for making sure that the donor is a great match and suitable for the recipient. And we're involved in that, and it's a great gift to be able to participate in as well. And statistically, having the Trillium Gift of Life people doing the conversations with these family members, the amount of donation actually goes up because of that. And everybody is so invested, the nurses and physicians, and it's a long process sometimes for the families, as you said. It was a couple of days, and that is so incredibly hard, which makes it even more amazing that the gift that these families are, and yourself, do as well. And as a donor, when you're going through that process, you're thinking, I want to give so much. And what if I can't? And it becomes your purpose. I want to be able to give and do this. And it's a huge grief process for yourself when you're not able to do it. As a healthcare worker, to be involved in this is pretty incredible. And, I applaud all of you. You've all been amazing.
And we applaud you. Without the medical people behind us, above us, around us, the whole process doesn't work.
Yeah, that's right.
Because there's nobody there to do the care and to do all of that, which we can't do. And for myself anyway, I am so grateful to medical people as well as the medical system. You hear this, the medical system is so blah, blah, blah. Wait a minute. Okay. Like, I've been in and out of doctors for years and years and years and years and years. I go in, I do my whatever, I walk out. I don't give them any money.
That's right.
And given my background and my medical history, if I lived elsewhere than Canada, I would either be dead. First thing.
We always say that about my mom as well.
Exactly.
Had we been in the States, my mom would not be here right now.
Or I'd be living in a cardboard box. Yeah. Because I don't even know what a transplant would cost, but thousands, tens of thousands of dollars.
$2.3 million.
So there you go. Yeah, I'd be dead.
Transplant in the U.S.
I'd be dead. Yeah. For sure.
And the reality is it not only changes your life, but when you have received your organ and you knew right away, and I was nodding back here like a bobblehead.
My mom said the same thing.
You knew because it was functioning and it hadn't functioned, so you weren't crazy, but it also changes your life in the fact that you're not having to do peritoneal dialysis every day. You have the time that you're not driving, let's say, to dialysis. You're having the time to have more with your family, your friends.
And you feel good with the time that you have.
I mean, I'm not going to take up aerobics now, but I mean, you did.
I did back a long time ago.
But it's an incredible, and you're right, when people say it's a gift and it's sort of, does it become a trite statement? It truly is not. When you give that gift, it is, as you said, Meg, the biggest gift you will ever give.
Or receive.
And
without a doubt.
Yeah, and I don't think people truly understand that until they have people like yourself themselves, that we, provide them the opportunity to speak and educate. And I'd like to think positively, because I'm, a rosy kind of gal. That is extremely important to have programs like this that continue with the message. Which is great.
Yeah. And we have to take a break so that we can pay for programs like this to continue running on radio stations that are all volunteer based. You're listening to Fresh Waves on Whistle FM, Stouffville's community radio station, and we'll be back right after this. Stay tuned.
Canadians are so nice. So why can't we give up even one kidney after we die? Be an organ and tissue donor for someone in need. Register or find out more at beadonor.ca.